Hi there. Welcome to Statik's Geek Notes. This is part one of a short series on how to draw UML diagrams with the free software Dia, or Dia, depending on how you want to pronounce it. Today we will cover three main topics. UML, what it is and the different types of diagrams it describes. Dia, what it is and how to get it. And we will cover our first UML diagram type, class diagrams. UML stands for Unified Modeling Language. UML is not a language in the way you might think of it, in that it can't be directly spoken, nor does it get directly interpreted by a computer. However, it is like a language in that it has a common vocabulary and grammar. Ever since people began to create computer programs, they used diagrams to represent different aspects of the program. When object-oriented programming entered the scene, diagrams became at once both more useful and more necessary. With each programmer or school creating their own vocabulary and grammar, it was difficult to share diagrams between groups as they weren't speaking the same language. UML was one attempt to create a standardized language for a wide variety of situations that was also not tied to one particular programming language or even limited to programming at all. So why would we want to use UML? First, it is easy to visualize. It is said that a picture is worth 1,000 words, and UML provides a visual language to easily communicate several concepts. Secondly, it is standardized so that disparate groups can create diagrams for and understand the diagrams of each other. UML defines two main categories of diagrams. One is structural, which means how things are related in structure. One concrete idea of this is how the rooms in your house are related. In programming, it relates to classes or objects to each other. For example, a checking account is a specialized kind of bank account. They are related structurally. The second category is behavioral, which involves how things happen in time or in relation to each other. An example of this is when you serve a meal. You cook the meal in the kitchen and then transport the meal to the dining area where it is consumed. The meal must be first cooked before it can be consumed, and the place of cooking is different from the place of consumption. From a computer programming view, an example would be going to a web page. The user clicks on a link which is interpreted by the browser as a request for a web page. That request is sent to the server, which then delivers the web page back to the browser, which then displays it to the user. The different structural diagrams are composite structure diagrams, deployment diagrams, package diagrams, profile diagrams, class diagrams, object diagrams, and component diagrams. The different behavioral diagrams are state machine diagrams, interaction overview diagrams, use case diagrams, sequence diagrams, timing diagrams, communication diagrams, and activity diagrams. This brings us to the tool, Dia. Now there are many different computer tools for drawing these diagrams, and you can even draw these diagrams by hand. However, most of these tools involve paying a fee. As a Linux user, I often look for the free Linux version, which in this case was Dia. When I started using Dia, there was not a Windows version, but there are now versions available for Linux, Windows, and Mac. You can get them by going to http://dia-installer.de and downloading the installer for your operating system. Also, in most versions of Linux, you can just use your package installer to install Dia. I run Linux Mint, so I just type sudo apt-get install Dia at a command prompt. The default install of Dia includes the UML sheet type. Here's the default Dia window. This is the workspace with its grid. Here are the menus, and here's the toolbox. The top part are the default tools, and the bottom section changes depending on the sheet you have selected. This is the UML sheet. Today we are going to concentrate on these two buttons, the class button and the association button. So here's the main window for Dia, and what I'm going to do is we're going to start with a generic class. So we'll start with a class. You can see it already fills in the text. If I double click on it, it brings up the first menu. So let's just start with a generic type of thing, say a bank account. Now if I hit apply, you can see in the window here that it now says bank account. And there are two sections below this. One is the attributes. And if I unclick this and hit apply, you'll notice it disappears. And then the other one is operations. So we have a bank account. Now I mentioned in the original when we started that a checking account is a specialized kind of bank account. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this one into a checking account. And I'm going to hide these as well. Now we can move this over here. You notice the arrow tool allows me to move things. Now I'm going to add a different kind of class over here, and we're going to call this one a savings account. And we'll hide these as well. Like that. Now, you might notice that when I'm moving these are jumping in chunks. That's because if you go up here to View, I have Snap to Grid turned on. I'm going to turn it off for this case, and now you can see that they move smoothly. So, in order to show a relationship of what kind of diagram it is, we have a generalization. Go to this tick mark, and then I'll drag this down and touch on that. When it turns red, I can let go. This means that a checking account is a specialized kind of bank account. And we can do the same this way. So the same thing, click where the red is, and bring it down, there. And I can balance these up. Okay, so a checking account is a specialized kind of bank account, and a savings account is a specialized kind of bank account, but these two aren't together. Okay? So, now let's modify our bank account. What we're going to do is we're going to give it some attributes. So, this is the attribute section. Actually, let's go back here, and I'm going to add, we'll say comments are visible, and here we'll say general bank account. So this is a general bank account. If I hit apply, you can see it gives us some more information in here. And we've got attributes visible. So, things that you should have in a general bank account. Well, let's say we need an ID. An ID will be an integer. And this can be the default value. So we're not going to put any default value in here. But we can put a comment in. This is the ID for the account. Now really, when you go to a bank, we don't usually use ID numbers, we use account number. So let's just change that. Account number. Now we hit apply. You can see this says account number, type integer, and the comment. ID for the account. Alright, so we want, let's say, put a name on it. And we'll make this a variable character. We're not going to put any value in there again, and this would be name of the account holder. Okay, and let's add balance, and that will also, this will be a float type, and we'll hit apply. Notice I didn't put a comment in. Alright, so now we have a bank account that has these three things. Now, a checking account's going to have some extra attributes. So it's going to inherit these three things. It's going to have a balance, a name, and an account number. But it also is going to have a number of free checks. And this is going to be an int. So if I go back here, you notice when I hit apply, it doesn't show up. We need to make it visible. There. So now this checking account has a number of free checks as int. Okay. Now let's go look at the savings account. We'll make the attributes visible. Now a savings account has an interest rate of type float because we want it to be a decimal. Okay, so a checking account doesn't have an interest rate, and a savings account doesn't have a number of free checks. This gives us some class relationships. Now what we want to do now is be able to talk about operations. So I'm going to make the operations visible for this. You can see there's no operations. We'll go in here, and we want a new operation. So what's one of the things you want to be able to do with a bank account? Well, we want to make a deposit. And a type is actually what it returns. Okay, so we want to have a Boolean return. And we'll make that a public method. And we want to add in What do you want to pass into it? We want to pass in amount of a float. Now I hit apply. So you can see, it says deposit an amount, which is a float, and it returns a Boolean, which for us would be a success or failure. So what's the other thing you might want to do with a bank account? Well, you might want to get your money out. So we'll put in a withdraw. And we'll also give that a Boolean type. And we also want to pass in an amount that's also a float. And we hit apply, and there we go. Now if we want to, if we go over here, this is the comment section. So we can say deposit an amount to the account as a comment. And we'll move this up. And I just roll my mouse and it moves this up and down. So there's the comment, so we know what this method is going to do. Now making it do the same thing here. Draw an amount from the account. You can see it dynamically updates. Okay? Now, when we withdraw from our bank account, it's just going to take the money out, and we'll probably put into it that it checks to see if there's sufficient balance or not. With a checking account, we might want to add something in here. So let's go back and make the operations visible, and we're going to change this method. So we're going to put in new, and we're going to put in a new withdraw method, which is also going to be a Boolean, and it's also going to take an amount that is also a float. But what we're going to do is we want to have a withdraw fee. So we can go back and add that in here as a new type. And that will also be a float. Okay, so this withdrawal is going to override this withdrawal and also use the withdraw fee in it. But it works the same. Now a savings account. We also want to make some operations for that. So what would be different with a savings account? Well, we want to make a method that says add interest. And we'll give it a bool type so it can tell us if it succeeds or fails. Now, we're not going to give it any parameters because we just want it to do the interest. So it's going to check when it was last done and apply the interest up till today. So we don't have anything being passed in. But, like I said, we need to know when it was last done. So, last interest. Date. There. So now we've added that in. So now we have three class definitions and where they work together. And we don't have any private things. They're all public. This plus sign tells you if they're public or private or anything. So what I'm going to do, just for an example, is we're going to go back here to attributes. We're going to change this one to private. And we're going to change this one to protected. And if I hit apply, you can see a plus sign for public, a minus sign for private, and a number sign for protected. I'll change those back. That's just to show you how those work. Alright, so there's different kinds of bank accounts. Now we have a different kind of thing to show you. So let's go over here and we're going to create a customer. Leave all those visible, and we're just going to give them an ID. That's an integer. And we'll give them a name, which is a varchar. Okay, and let's just hide the operations for now. Alright, so one of the things that you have in UML is relationships between different classes as well. This is an inheritance or generalization one. This is the other button I told you we're going to use, the association. Okay, so we're going to associate between these two. And you can see that there is this little arrow and that. But if we double click on that, it's going to bring up all this association. Okay, so what we want to do, actually, let's redo this the other way, because I want the relationship the other way. We don't want a bank account to have a customer. We want a customer to have a bank account, like that. So the direction is from this way. This is B, this is A now. Okay, and we want to make this has. If you hit apply, you can see customer has bank account. Now, how many customers can a bank account have? That's here in this multiplicity. This is side A. So this is side B. A bank account can only have one customer. So I hit apply. Oh, it's backwards again. One. Okay, so one customer can have a bank account. How many bank accounts can a customer have? You can have one or more. So there. Now you have that. We can put arrows on each end, this way or that way. So a bank account doesn't have a customer, but customer goes that way, has a bank account. And that's the way the relationship will go. And there are all kinds of other things you can do here. Outer root just means that it moves stuff around on its own. You can use this yellow one in the center to move where that is at. If I unhook these from the level they're at, that allows you to move this. But when I bring them together, it just affects the position of the center. Oh, I've unhooked them. Okay. If you notice, if this is unhooked, it's green. If I bring it up, it turns red. Those are hooked together, and now they're linked. Okay. So there is your multiplicity and everything else that you can affect. And the name for it and everything else. So there's a lot of extra things you can add in there. So that gives you your class relationships. You can build very big and complicated ones. But that's the basics of how to make a diagram. So now we can go up here and hit File and Save. And we'll just call it Diagram 1 for now. Let's call it Class Diagram. Okay. This is not a file that you can use in a lot of programs. What you need to do is export. So you come here to export, and you can see here's the different types. There's tons of different types that Dia will export, especially in Linux. The three that I would recommend that you use is a PNG. PNG is like a GIF file. They're great for line drawings, and it allows for you to add transparency to the background, but they're a fixed size. So if I go to save this as a PNG and hit save, it will automatically pick a size. So if I go look at that, this is what it looks like as a PNG. But if I zoom in, you can see that it's stair-stepped. Okay? The other kind that you can do is you can export this as a PDF file. Now if I save this as a PDF file, you notice these big blue lines in the background? These are page dividers. So if I go look at that PDF diagram now, you can see I have pages here with just pieces of things on them. So what I need to do is go to File, Page Setup. And I'm going to leave this set at vertical because it seems to fit it better. I'm going to say Fit to 1 by 1. And if I hit Apply, now you can see how that's going to look on a page. If I turn it the other way and hit Apply, that's how it's going to look. And it actually looks like it's going to be better. So now if I export that as a PDF, there it is on a single page, which actually doesn't look very bad at all. If I zoom in at 400%, you can see that the arrow is still an arrow. It's not stair-stepped. The other type that you can use that I recommend if you're going to be putting this into like a word processor or something is the Scalable Vector Graphic, SVG. If I save that and we take a look at it, there's an SVG. It looks almost the same as the PNG, but if you zoom in on an SVG, you can zoom in all the way and it still stays because it's drawn of little lines, little vectors. So this here will scale very well inside your programs. So there you go. There is a very basic introduction to doing class diagrams in DIA, UML class diagrams. Thanks, and catch you next time.